Hello and welcome to episode 635 of the Daily Sales Message podcast, where every single day I share a piece of simple and actionable advice that's designed to help you feel more confident and sell more stuff too. Now, in today's episode, we're talking about indirect competition. Indirect competition. This is something that lots of businesses and people that I speak with don't really pay attention to. It's not that obvious, but it's important for your buyer. And I'll give you, perhaps it's an obvious example, perhaps it's a banal example, but it's relatable. You are thinking about investing in one of those fancy coffee pod machines. So you start looking it up and you're comparing it to other fancy coffee pod machines. But you're also comparing it to just having a fancy kettle or having a cafetiere. So if you're in the fancy coffee pod machine market, you might think your competition are other people that make fancy coffee pod machines, and you'd be right. But your buyer is also trying to make a decision between buying a really nice expensive kettle that they can make all sorts of drinks out of and it will last them for a long time, a cafetiere, which is, for some people that's more appealing, or to go with a coffee pod system. So they're not trying to decide between which coffee pod machine they want. They're trying to make the best decision with the solutions available, from cafetiere to kettle to coffee pod machine. So the cafetiere and the kettle are your indirect competition. So the question I've got for you is, what's the indirect competition for you? What other things could people do to solve or think they're solving the problem that they've got to get them to where they want to be? What does that look like, and how do you stack up against them? Because if you can't compare and argue against the indirect competition, you're going to make it harder for your buyer to make a decision. Whereas if you can, and you say this is why you want to buy a coffee pod machine over a cafetiere, over a kettle, you're doing the thinking for them, you've done the homework for them, you're going to make the buying decision much easier for them too. Right, that's it for this episode of the podcast. Thank you for listening or watching all the way to the end. I do appreciate it. I'll catch you tomorrow for episode 636, where the title is Never Slam the Door. Never Slam the Door. I'll expand on that tomorrow in another exciting edition of the Daily Sales Message.